Recording in progress.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the City of Cupertino Planning Commission meeting for August 10th, 2021. In accordance with the Governor Newsom's Executive Order number 2920, this will be a teleconference meeting. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's a teleconference meeting without a physical location to help stop the spread of COVID-19. So for those that wanting to participate, of course, you can hop in on this Zoom meeting and, of course, in many other formats. With that, let's go to, let's do a roll call. So,
Commissioner Maripatla?
Yes.
Commissioner Saxena?
Yes.
Vice Chair Scharf?
Here.
Chair Wong?
Here.
And Commissioner Kapil is absent today.
Okay. Oh, great. Well, with that, all right, let's start with the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes. We have the first set of minutes, which is the draft minutes of June 22nd, 2021. Recommended action, approve or modify the draft minutes of June 22nd, 2021. So let's take some time, look at the draft minutes, and if there's any approvals or motions to actually approve or make changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the draft minutes.
Well, Commissioner Kapil is not here today. Do we need 3 people to approve?
Well, is Mooney not here? Oh, Mooney's here. I mean,
Mooney's here.
Mooney was not there on that meeting.
Oh, yeah, we need
Yeah,
3
but
people
both,
that were at
yeah,
that.
you need
No.
3 people.
Well, so is this the last meeting or the previous one?
This is the May 25th, well, this
Yeah,
is the,
that one. Yeah, I wasn't there. So
Yeah. so we
Well,
may
I
have to
was
have to do-
there and Ray was there. And were you there, Vikram?
No, I was not there.
He was not.
for-
He was not.
Again, we can't. Okay, well,
Yeah, this one's going to be on hold. So we will table the approval of the minutes for June 22nd, 2021, but let's move to item number 2, the draft minutes of July 27, 2021. Same thing, recommended action, approve or modify the draft minutes of July 27, 2021. Is there a motion here?
I'll make a motion to approve those. And there were 3 of us
yeah,
that were there that are here now.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any comments, discussions, amendments, changes? Everyone's gone through the minutes. Okay, no comments. Well, let's take a vote.
Commissioner Maripatla?
Yes.
Commissioner Saxena?
Yes.
Vice Chair Scharf?
We can't hear you, Steve. You're on mute.
I,
Chair Wong?
I have to abstain. I was not there. Thank you. I believe the motion carries 3-0-1 for the minutes. So,
great.
okay. All right. We'll move on to oral communications. For folks who remember, this portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter within the jurisdiction of the commission and not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. In most cases, state law will prohibit the commission from making any decisions with respect to matter not on the agenda. And so if you're an attendee, raise your hand and we will call on you. Our first guest is Jenny Griffin. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Wong. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I am very, very concerned about proposed legislation SB 9, SB 10, and AB 1401. I have never in my life, being raised in California with parents who adored Jerry Brown's father, I have never seen legislation like this. I hope we never see it again, because everything that I have read about it means that there are groups in California that are taking advantage of the public. But when you have things that are considered, quote, by right and ministerial, those are other words for you have no right to say anything and you can't vote on it. And I think that was interesting. I think that we need to remember that the public is being subjected to these housing bills by some elected politicians. They're trying to have these bills go across the entire state, and they have forgotten that the public is not allowed to say anything or vote on them. So in my mind, ministerial and by right are unconstitutional. I don't know why these people think that they have the right to say that these bills are that way, but I sure haven't been consulted on it, and I sure have not been asked if I wanted to vote on it. And this is affecting how I am voting on the recall for my governor. And I'm getting to the point now where SB 9, SB 10, and AB 1401 are destabilizing the political infrastructure in California and affecting the recall of our governor. And I sure hope these politicians think very, very carefully about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And let's reminder to the public, any other open items, feel free to just raise your hand, and we're more than happy to have you here. So, okay, I don't see anything at the moment. That's happy to take any written communications. Abby, anything to add there?
I forwarded you two written communications.
Yes, those were pertaining to the item on the.
I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. It's no. Actually, the answer is no.
Okay, great. We have none for any open communications. Okay, I think we can move on to. I don't think there's anything on our consent calendar. If that's correct. Let's move on to public hearings. Pew, what do we have?
Good evening, Planning Commission. We are here to discuss municipal code amendments that we are proposing to our density bonus ordinance. And if you would just give me a minute to share my screen.
While you do that, I'll read the agenda item as well. Consider amendments to Cupertino Municipal Code sections 1956.030. This is really addition of our density bonus ordinance to allow density bonuses and other incentives as provided by state law, and also to add a subsection in section 1956.040, providing additional incentives for affordable housing, and a new section 1956.080, providing that the density bonus ordinance will be interpreted consistent with state density bonus laws. So application number MCA-2021-003, and that's the applicant, which is us, City of Cupertino. The recommended action is that the Planning Commission adopt the draft resolution recommending that the City Council find the actions exempt from CEQA and adopt amendments to the Cupertino Municipal Code. So we will go through those, and Pew, all's yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Wong. I just wanted to mention that we recently adopted a density bonus ordinance in May of 2021. And this is a follow-up to that particular ordinance. As you mentioned in the subject, the amendments are to various sections of the density bonus ordinance to comply with AB 2345. Again, this is part of our affordable housing strategies work program item, which included updates to the city's density bonus ordinance. It was in the prior fiscal year work program. It no longer carries forward into our 21-22 fiscal year work program. However, AB 2345, it increased the maximum density bonuses for projects that were not 100% affordable from 35% to 50% for a mere 4 to 5% increase in affordability. The law did provide that a city could adopt its own housing program or ordinance or both to incentivize the development of affordable housing by allowing bonuses that exceed 35%, which the city did in earlier this year. However, again, like I mentioned, this was something that we did earlier this year. However, the Department of Housing and Community Development expressed concern that the adopted program by resolution and the ordinance amendments themselves did not create a program, and therefore also did not provide sufficient incentives for affordable housing. Just in terms of the amendments that are being proposed, there are some amendments to a particular table in the density bonus ordinance where changes have been made to comply with the density bonus ordinance, with AB 2345. In essence, there is a 1% increase in density bonus for every percent of increase in very low income units in any development, up to 11%. That gets us to the first step of 35%. And then any increases beyond the 11%, essentially for every 1% increase in the very low income units on the affordable side, developers would get a 3.75% bonus on the market rate unit side. And there's similar bonuses to the low income and the moderate income units. I think the old percentages stood up to the old thresholds for affordable units, and then anything above that, it got increased by the 3.75%. There's also a separate bill, which was codified in Government Code Section 65915. 100% affordable housing developments could get up to 80% density bonuses. And so that is also being codified in the city's local ordinance at this time. We just wanted to make a point that the city has consistently approved density bonus projects on its particularly housing priority sites. These include Valco, Marina, Veranda, and the Westport projects. The city has also, offers a host of incentives to incentivize affordable housing within other parts of the municipal code, which include flexible zoning standards in our planned development zoning districts. There are many of those already that exist, and there is a path for properties that are not planned development zoning districts to apply to be planned development zoning districts. We also have our BMR housing program, which is administered through Chapter 19.172 of our municipal code. And there are a bunch of manuals, administrative and other manuals that also implement the city's BMR program. However, despite all of the city's existing incentives and additional analysis, HCD asserts that the city's existing density bonus program does not comply with AB 2345. There's evidence based on analysis that the city had commissioned by a consultant, and also in looking at the experience from San Diego, where AB 2345, a program that was very similar to AB 2345, was originally implemented. Developers are most likely to use the program by providing very low income housing units, because that's where you get the maximum bonus, or you get your most bang for your buck in terms of bonus units very quickly. And so for projects with very low income housing, AB 2345's maximum bonus of 50% for providing 15% very low income units is not very different from the city's existing density for affordability ratio, which goes at 17% very low income units, you would have to provide, you would get a 50% density bonus. So while it's not that different, HCD does continue to assert that the city's program does not comply with AB 2345. There were some additional incentives and concessions that if the city had a program that would not apply to the city's density bonus ordinance, those incentives are currently also being codified. And so additionally, the last one is also pursuant to that government code section that I mentioned. I believe it was 651-915. So if you're 100% affordable housing development, you get up to 4 incentives and concessions. And then there were certain incentives for providing lower percentages of low income units. These are additional optional incentives that the city staff is recommending be codified. These are existing things that the city already does. For example, for all affordable units, we waive parkland dedication fees and construction taxes. This is talked about in our housing element and also mentioned in our BMR program. There's also things that we do to prioritize affordable housing developments or developments that have additional affordable housing units than required by the city's BMR program. And then another commitment that the city wanted to make was, which we've already done on one of our projects, is to provide letters of support for financial grant applications when you have a development or a building that comprises of 100% affordable units. So these are optional incentives that the city is that staff is recommending be codified at this time, and this is an option for the Planning Commission to consider. including.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Sure.
I think you said that we already provide these incentives, so why are we putting it here again?
So this is just a way of reiterating our commitment to doing these things on an ongoing basis. The first two are mentioned in both our housing element. It's in the general plan. It's not in the Muni Code. However, the first one is in our BMR housing manual. The second one just resides in our general plan policies and strategies. And then the last one, I believe, is also in our, is kind of an ongoing practice that we have that's not necessarily written down anywhere particularly. But it is a city's commitment to provide letters of support for in the event that anybody wishes to apply for grant applications.
Right.
Hugh,
So we
can I
already
ask
do waive the dead park fees and the construction taxes. Is that what you're saying?
We do, yes. That is
Okay.
part of our BMR manual.
Right. But the second one, the priority processing, that is not, that's just,
That is resides in our general plan strategies.
okay. Now, is that for 100% housing projects?
No,
Or,
so this one we're saying that if you provide more housing than what the city's BMR program requires. So as you know, our city's BMR program is 15% for rental and 20% for ownership projects. So if you provided more than that, then you would get priority processing.
I see. And would those have to comply with the city's inclusionary housing requirements regarding size and
Yes. Well, unless they apply for waivers.
Okay, so if they got waivers and concessions, they would still get the priority processing. Okay. All right. Well, we'll discuss this later, but I would.
Yeah, actually, we can discuss that later too. I have
Yeah.
a question. Where is that codified for priority processing right now?
It's not codified in the municipal code. It is in the general plan. It talks about priority processing for affordable developments. And so this is one way of generally stuff that is in the general plan gets the general plan document is more of a policy document. And in terms of implementation, it gets codified into the municipal code or some manual or something like that, which gives us our day-to-day marching instructions in a way.
We'll come back to this. I'm kind of curious to where it's codified and where exactly it's codified in the GP. But let's keep going.
Sure. In addition to that, a new section is being recommended. This is to ensure that if there are any conflicts with state law, because density bonus law is changing so rapidly, to make sure that we don't fall out of step with state density bonus law in terms of conflicts, there is this added section that is recommended be added. In terms of CEQA review, we don't see that the proposed code amendments would result in any direct or foreseeable or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment. And so it does not constitute a project under CEQA. And additionally, the amendments can be seen with certainty based on the review of the facts that there's no possible significant effect on the environment. So these would be considered categorically exempt from CEQA under Section 378 and Section 15061B3, if anybody's interested in the exact numbers. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Again, the recommended action is to adopt the draft resolution recommending City Council adopt the proposed amendments to the density bonus ordinance. In addition, like I mentioned, in the alternative, the Planning Commission could adopt the draft ordinance, but not recommend the additional incentives with fee waivers, etc. With that, I'm available for questions, as is Chris.
Okay. Yep. Let's see if any of the commissioners have any questions for staff. I've definitely got a few, feel free to jump in.
So Ray, this is not, after public comment, we'll have another opportunity. Is that correct?
Correct. We can ask questions now.
Okay.
We will then go to public comment. And then, of course, we can actually discuss the resolution. Just from a process perspective, we can make amendments, make changes, make suggestions. And that's for then council to take up from our point. So that would be the process.
All right. Who wants to go first? I have a bunch of questions.
Go ahead, Steve.
So I'm recalling when this first came to the Planning Commission for the first time, and our city staff and our attorneys, they stated that our ordinance was compliant because it would result in a larger quantity of affordable housing to be built than would be built under AB 2345. And as Pew pointed out, one of the things was the 17% requirement in order to get a 50% density bonus. So I was reading the staff report from the last time, and it quoted the Turner Center in Berkeley, their financial analysis that showed that the AB 2345 incentives offered less value to the development community and would be less attractive. So now we're told we got to forget all this analysis that we were presented with December 15th, change the ordinance, which is going to probably result in less affordable units being built, or we're going to be sued by these development interests. And I mean, I think it's deplorable that this is allowed to happen. I understand we don't want to subject the city to lawsuits, but I just think, you know, we know what happened here. We know which developer wrote to HCD and which resident wrote to another anti-affordable housing organization complaining about this. And I just think it's, you know, we were told that the big shortage in Cupertino is for affordable housing. And now we're being required to make this change that will likely result in less affordable housing. I mean, I understand the developer makes more money with fewer affordable units. And, you know, maybe if I were a developer, I'd do the same thing. But it really is a shame that we have to do this. Nobody here wants to get embroiled in an expensive legal dispute. But I would ask, if HCD says that what we did is not sufficient to qualify as, quote, a program, what other cities have been able to do a density bonus law that HCD does consider compliant? And can we do something similar? I was hoping Barb Katz would be here tonight, but she is not. But maybe our city attorney can tell us what would HCD consider as compliant.
Before we do that, real quick, I just want to make sure we have this from staff and it's clear. Is it definitive that HCD did say that we are not in conformance with AB 2345? Do we have any correspondence that definitively says that, or is that just the initial conversation that was filed on behalf by a specific interest developer and a specific interest resident?
So there was the correspondence received from HCD in May, that was directed to the city manager. And I mean, I believe it took the position that the city cannot effectively reduce the density bonus for any given affordability level that, you know, in a way that would be consistent with state law. And so I think it's correct to say that they are asserting that the city's not in compliance. That's an argument that we could have in court, and the commission's been provided a confidential memo on aspects of that argument. But I would say that HCD is taking the position that we're not in compliance, as well as other nonprofit organizations that are involved.
Right. So let me interrupt you for 1 second. So I did speak to our former city manager, who, after receiving this letter in May, did contact HCD and ask them, what would be considered to be in compliance. Now, she's gone. She had not received any response from HCD before she left, but I wonder if the new interim city manager had ever gotten a response from HCD on this, or there's been nothing else communicated.
I am not aware of any further communication with HCD. I don't know if Pew is aware of any.
No, I was just going to add that, even if HCD did give us guidance on what would be considered a program that would comply, the date to have that adopted, it's already passed. We had to have a program adopted by December 31st, 2020, in order for us to not or in order for us not to have AB 2345 apply. to the city. So, and I believe there were only, we might have been one of only 2 cities or 3 cities that adopted a program to have additional affordable housing be made available in developments. But this was not what HCD considers a program.
Okay.
And in essence, I think in essence, it basically considers that because San Diego already had its program in place, that San Diego would not have to make any changes to their ordinances.
Right. So I had another question for Chris. So our current BMR requirement for rental housing is 15%. And I seem to remember asking our other city attorney, Heather, at one point, or maybe it was Barb, how high can we raise that 15% considering our next RENA cycle, we're required to plan for over 40% BMR. And if we did raise it from 15% to 20%, would that override the lower percentage in AB 2345?
Yeah, so thanks. I'm glad you asked that question because I think that is a way to encourage more affordability without tying it to the density bonus, which would avoid conflicts with AB 2345. So the city is allowed for rental housing. The city is allowed to include as much as 15% of BMR requirements without any kind of feasibility study or anything. When you go above 15%, there is a requirement to do a feasibility study to essentially show that that projects can be built. But there is that is an option that the city could explore to increase affordability, and it would not be dependent on the density bonus. Being a project being a density bonus project.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. And I also note that, like San Jose, in Cupertino, we don't do this. We have inclusionary requirement, period. San Jose has in lieu fee option, and they're very, very hefty in lieu fees. And while, I mean, I think most of us prefer inclusionary, I know the developers do not. And that may be, one reason we have all these approved projects, but none of them are actually getting built, which is the problem. We can approve, as much as we want, but if a developer says, hey, I got my approval, but I'm not building, we don't get any affordable or any in lieu fees. And that is not a good outcome for that.
So I'm going to give Mooney a shot to answer. He's been waiting patiently, and we'll get back to you and see if Commissioner Saxene also has any questions. Commissioner Madipatla, all yours.
Yeah, could you hear me? Yeah, thank you. So I have a few questions. So is our current ordinance that we adopted, is that compliant with AB 2345 or not?
So
the one that is, go ahead, Jeff. Chris.
With the ordinance that's currently in effect, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, the one that's currently in force, is that compliant with the AB 2345 or not? The YIMBY law in particular is contending that the ordinance is not in compliance with AB 2345, and their argument is, is in a nutshell, if an applicant comes in with, so for example, 15% very low income units, that they under state law, they would be entitled to a 50% density bonus. And if the city tries to impose a higher inclusionary requirement, that would be inconsistent with the state law. So that's the argument that they would make based on the current ordinance. So could you guys hear Chris?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
We hear you.
I think Mooney, you're frozen at the moment. But let me get some clarification. So let me get this right. So the ordinance we adopted to be
Could you
conforming
guys hear
to.
me?
Go ahead,
We can hear
Mooney.
you now.
I think he's in delay.
Yeah,
He's
okay.
back on mute.
So I turned off my video. For a better connection. So, Chris, I understand the IMBI law contention. I'm more interested in our city's legal view, right? So what does our legal team think in terms of what we have, if it's compliant with the AB 2345 or not?
Well, so I mean, I'd refer you to the confidential memo that we provided. I mean, I think it's pretty, but I mean, I don't think. I think it's pretty obvious to everybody here that part of the reason and the main reason this ordinance is being brought back to you is to mitigate legal risk. And so, without say anything too much more than that in public, I would refer you to the confidential memo that I shared with you on Friday.
Okay, thanks. I'll take a look at that. So I couldn't access emails from here where I am, so that might be a different issue. Let me understand, the logic behind this, right? So I'm going to use an example, right? So a 1% increase, I'm going to use the numbers now that may not be, the numbers that exist. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to use some numbers. So a 1% increase in affordable housing will get the developer, let's say, a 2% increase, right? So if on the total project, right? So if I use as an example of 100 units is being built somewhere, right, as part of the project, let's assume that 10% has to be let's assume our city ordinance calls for 10% being in affordable housing. So that means 10 units would be affordable, and and the remaining 90 would be market rate or whatever, right? So if the developer says I'm going to increase 1% on the affordable housing, which means they're going from 10 to 11, right? They get to increase the project by, let's say 2%, right? So that means that the 2% is on the entire project. Is that right?
2% is on the entire project. I believe I'll defer to Pew on the math, but I believe the 2% is on the base base project.
If I may, so if for our purposes, the change occurs at 12%. So if a developer has a 100-unit project and they provide 12 very low-income units, they would get to build 139 units.
And 139 units of,
so they would get to build 139 units total, of which 12 would be a very low income units.
Okay, so if they provide 10 units of very low income, what would be the number?
If they provided 10 units, then the number would be 134.
134.
I'm sorry, no, I take that back. 133.
133?
Yeah.
So I'm confused, right? So if they provide 10 very low income units, they get to build 133 units total, right? And if they give us 12 units, they get to build 135.
139.
39, okay. So for 2 low-income units, they are getting to build 6 more market rate units. Is that right?
Correct, because everything gets rounded up.
Okay. So, and so we are changing with this proposal. What are we changing those numbers to?
That is the new proposal. Okay. Let me share my screen. It's in the presentation. Maybe it will help to.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, using some numbers, what would be the current ordinance number and what would be the new proposed numbers?
Yes. So if you look at it earlier, when they were earlier, if a developer proposed 12, right? Let's just look at that. If they proposed 12 affordable units in a 100-unit development, they would be able to build 138. Now, if they propose 12, they would be able to build 139.
Okay. So one more unit they're getting extra. Is that right?
Correct. But then if they on the flip side, if they propose 15, they can go up to 150. Whereas earlier, if they proposed 15, they could only go up to 140.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Saxena, any questions on your end?
Yeah.
For our staff before we get the public comment?
So I just wanted to understand the essence. The essence is that earlier on we required slightly higher requirements for a similar level of concessions and density bonuses than what the law required. And the lawsuit being threatened says that because we require a little bit more in the low-income BMR housing, we are not in compliance with the state law. Is that a good summary?
I think that's a good one-sentence summary of the allegations in the lawsuit. Yes.
Okay. And the language of the bill, does it make it clear that as soon as you reach that level, you have to have it, or does it, like, is it explicit that if the bill says 18 and we have 20, it is not compliant? Like, do we know the specific segments of the bill which says that? Because the reason I'm asking, the whole purpose of the BMR laws and everything, affordable housing density bonus, is to incentivize affordable housing. I think we all know that housing is a major problem here, and the incentive to give bonus is to the purpose of the bonuses is to incentivize that housing. So I'm a bit lost why pro-housing groups, or the groups which are claiming to be pro-housing, saying that requiring like 2% or 3% or something more in affordable housing is anti-housing. So that's the thing. And we are sure, based on the reading of the bill, that that at least has to be interpreted as that, because I was reading the bill in preparation for the meeting, and it says at least this much, and that means that, and not there, like the specific language of the bill.
Yeah. So you know, again, this hasn't been adjudicated. What I would say is that if there were a legal challenge, I think that they would rely on mandatory language in the density bonus law that says, you know, once you get to a certain level of affordability, that you shall be entitled to a density bonus at a certain level. And then I think the other aspect of it is that the legislature was quite explicit that that cities could adopt a higher density bonus, allow greater density, but not lower. And so I think,
Okay.
I think, you know, again, this hasn't been adjudicated, and you know, we could certainly make other arguments, but that those would be the arguments that I think we'd be facing.
Okay. So
I think there's one other thing that Commissioner Saxena, I just wanted to, sorry for the interruption, I just wanted to clarify as well. YIMBY Law and, you know, other housing advocacy groups, I think their whole perspective is that there should just be more housing altogether at every income level, and it's not just about affordable housing. So their position is that anything that it just allows additional or housing in any way, that's what their platform and support is for. And that's what you asked that question is. I'm just trying to theorize on what there might be.
So basically that means, you know, they don't care about affordability. They just want any housing, even if it's, you know, market rate housing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the objection is it's not that we had a higher requirement for the number of affordable units. It was, well, yeah, that was it, because you could still get to 50% under our ordinance, but to do so, you would need more additional affordable units, which over and above 2345. So 2345, the way I see it, is it's a maximum a city can require, not a minimum in terms of the number of affordable units. And like as you said, I don't want to put words in the mouth of any of these organizations, but yes, their concern and based on who funds their organizations is building more market rate housing, and affordability is not the primary concern.
Yeah, I think.
Go ahead, Commissioner Sexton.
Ms. Ghosh clearly outlined that they're going for, or their charter or the intent is to have as much housing and not not BMR housing. It's just that it sort of is, I would say, sad that market rate housing bonuses sort of piggyback on BMR, and then BMR invariably doesn't get built because of so many reasons.
Well, Commissioner Saxena, it's not just that BMR doesn't get built. What we end up is these little boxes that can't even put families in, right? They just serve as an excuse for a very low income and don't even address the affordability crisis. We end up with market rate housing, which gets more and more expensive, and affordable housing, which gets smaller and smaller and not even passable as something for a family unit. So it's a massive crisis that's going on here, especially with the office building glut in exchange for housing that's been going on as well. That scam has got to end soon too.
But I mean, that's state law. Nothing we can really do about that.
I agree. Any other questions? I've got a slew of questions as well.
Yeah, I think that's all from my side. I think the clarification really helped understand where they were coming from. And Ms. Ghosh was also very clear about the intention is to build more housing and not build more BMR housing here.
I agree. Well, let me start with some of my questions as well. I might cover some of the same ground others have asked. I just want to make sure it's clarified for the interest of the public as well. First question here is, the HCD concern was initiated by whom? Is there a public records request of HCD out there? Do we know for sure?
I have no knowledge of who initiated the request. I don't know if Pew does.
Sorry, I was just shaking my head. No, I do not know who might have.
I think it'd be important to understand who that is or find what that is, whether they had developer interests that were for market rate housing as opposed to affordable housing. I think that's an important piece, or whether it was a developer. The city can ask. I hope that we can ask that question. I would like the city to ask a PRR for HCD to find out who made that request, and so we understand what the interests were and which interests were aligned with the citizens and residents, and which interests were aligned with developers, especially if it was a specific developer. Number two, what can we do to continue to incentivize affordable housing without discriminating against families? Because these VLI and LI numbers are very discriminatory to families. The spaces probably wouldn't hold a family unit. And I was just thinking if there's any staff suggestions that we can do to incorporate in the municipal code here.
We'd probably have to go back and do additional research on that. However, our BMR manual does require that units be in the same proportion, the BMR units be in the same proportion as the other units. However, state law does allow concessions and incentives. And so, we do have to go back and do additional legal research on what can be done. So there would be additional research required. It's not something that I can opine or talk to right now.
Actually, that is a great point. That is a great point. So in our BMR manual, chapter 2.3.4 requirements, maybe we can actually make some requirements, and this is for our attorney. Can we add language to actually requirements to have the same number of bedrooms in size and add that to CMC 19.56.050 and not allow that to be taken as a concession, because that would discriminate against families who may want their children in the great schools here we have in Cupertino? Is that something we can look into as well?
We could certainly evaluate it. There are restrictions as what you can do to limit concessions. There are other ways through the BMR program that you can encourage family-sized units, and I just went through the process of participating in an economic analysis that looked at that in a different jurisdiction, and it's certainly possible to require family-sized units. or give the option for family size units. The trade-off tends to be because of economic feasibility that it's family size units versus more units, because of course the bigger units are reduce the financial feasibility of the project more than the smaller ones. But that's certainly something that you can do through the city's BMR program if that's a priority for the Planning Commission and the City Council.
I'll see how my other commissioners feel about that, but I think affordability is the priority here, not market rate housing, but also keeping in conformance with AB 2345. But I think it's important. We have an affordability crisis by all stats, all indications, not a market rate housing crisis. It's affordability that we're worried about, and we continue to make affordability out of reach by encouraging so much market rate housing. I know the two need to work hand in hand to pay for it, but we're out of balance in some cases. Okay. Question three here. Did HCD definitively say we are not in conformance with AB 2345? And did the city respond to HCD? I mean, I thought they did, but I just wanted to get the clarification here so that the public understands where we are.
Yeah, so I interpret HCD's letter to take the position that the city's density bonus as adopted by council in May was not in compliance with AB 2345. They have not weighed in, to my knowledge, at least not in writing since that point. The city did respond through a letter from our former city manager to HCD, and that response provided information about the city's affordable housing programs to provide some context to HCD's objections. And as we discussed earlier, I'm not aware that there's been any response from HCD from that since then. But I could certainly double check on that and follow up with you to confirm that.
Well, I think this is great. We're really excited to have you here, and I think this is very, very helpful. Okay, so let me get this right. So the ordinance we adopted to be conforming to AB 2345 to improve affordability and the amount of housing units is being threatened potentially by developer interests who don't want to see more affordability, but want to see more market rate housing. And, this is what initiated all this, just so that we have this all clear. Does that sound right?
So again, I don't know who initiated the process. I do know that we received letters from HCD, Californians for Homeownership, and YIMBY Law. So and I don't know exactly who initiated the process.
No problem. I might know the answer, so I don't want to be leading the witness.
Thank you, Ray. And I know in talking to former city manager Deb, HCD did let it slip as to which developer had contacted. They weren't supposed to, but HCD slipped up there.
Okay. Well, let's get back to some other questions around density bonus projects around the area. Do our neighbors, and this is to staff, do our neighbors have density bonus projects which have allowed similar types of scenarios here, just so that we have some examples?
I'm not aware. I don't know.
Okay. So we haven't done that analysis yet. And then real quick, what are the concessions? And when we talk about concessions that are included, I mean, do we just take a list, take 3, take 4, or are neighboring cities allowing concessions on the same number of bedrooms, square footage, height, dispersal? Do we have a table that we can do a comparison with?
No, I'm only aware that San Francisco has different density bonus programs, but I'm not aware that any of the other cities have any specific programs. I know San Diego has a density bonus program, I believe. Berkeley may have its own program, but I'm not 100% sure. But aside from that, I'm not aware of any immediately adjacent cities that have their own very specific density bonus programs. I think Los Altos might have something as well.
Excuse me, but I thought Ray was asking for other cities, their BMR programs, what are the inclusionary requirements, and I guess, is any inclusionary requirement that a city puts into place allowed to be waived using waivers and concessions? So no matter what a city did, it would be able to get out of it.
I think
obviously that's what we want to do. That would be the city's goal, is to ensure that our BMR program requirements are adhered to, and the goal of many developers are to ensure that they don't have to adhere to them.
So I am aware that there are many cities around us that do have BMR requirements. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. I do know that the city of Saratoga does not have an inclusionary requirement. With that, in terms of whether there can be incentives and concessions to any of the BMR program requirements, I think I will have to defer to Chris on that. It is all of those decisions are not made lightly in terms of whether something, whether staff would recommend that something be, allowed as a concession or incentive. Those decisions or those recommendations are made in conjunction with, review with the city attorney's office. So, Chris, do you have any additional comments on that?
Nothing very concrete. I mean, I have heard of that request being made. I have never been involved in a project where that waiver or concession was granted, and by that I mean a waiver of affordable housing, local affordable housing requirements above and beyond what is required to obtain the density bonus.
I don't think that
actually,
was
what would
question.
help? Yeah, actually, I think what would help is to have a comparison table. Actually, that might actually help. Can we get a comparison table actually as to what other cities are doing, especially on concessions for BMR? I think that will help because I think council's going to need that anyways, is my guess.
We can try to do that. Every city has multiple density bonus projects, and every project is very nuanced. We can attempt to try to get this information together before the council meeting. We'll certainly try to put something together.
I think that will help them a lot. Yeah, I think that will help, especially given where we are. And that last question before we send it to the public, and if any other commissioners have any questions, I'm still trying to figure out what prioritizing permitting is and where it's codified in the GP and exactly where is that. I mean, I was scanning it while we're talking and I still can't find any language like that. So I just want to make sure that we don't incorporate language that doesn't exist, that's not specific, and that could be misinterpreted by a developer and then used against us in a legal setting.
So
not that that's ever happened before here. So
right. So it's in the housing element policy 2.3.6, and there's a reference to incentives for affordable housing, and it refers to expedited permit processing, but there isn't any description that I'm aware of, at least that
not that I could see either.
Explains what that means. I mean, it's a general plan policy, so it's not unusual for it to be sort of high level and vague, like it is, but that's I believe where it's reflected in the general plan.
I understand that. I just don't want us out there doing prioritizing permitting when we have no idea what that means, and developers are going to run roughshod on that definition. Others might run roughshod on that definition. Staff may be confused, not intentionally, but well-intentioned to get something moving along. But that's just something I'll leave there. Okay,
Yeah,
those are my questions.
We don't want to put vague things into an ordinance like that. I mean, we want to be really
never happened before here.
If it's in a,
So.
yeah.
So the proposed ordinance is a bit more specific than that. That said, of course, I mean the additional incentives that were included in the staff recommendation are an option for the commissioners to consider, and you could choose to adopt them or not. They are not essential to the issue of compliance with AB 2345.
Did you write those? I mean, who wrote those and put them there?
The community development worked with the legal team to write those.
Okay, thank you.
But it's been reviewed by your office. Is that correct, Chris?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, yeah, no, I'm glad the process is in place as well. With that, any other questions from commissioners? Sorry, a little excited today about this issue. As you can tell, affordable housing is something we've been passionate about on this commission. Okay, with that, let's turn it over to comments from our public and questions from our public. And as a general rule, you have 3 minutes to do so. Raise your hands on Zoom and we'll call you. Our first comment is from Peggy Griffin. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Planning Commission and staff. I'm disappointed that there are Cupertino residents that are lobbying on the behalf of developers to decrease the number of affordable units in the city. As the staff report states, our city has stepped up and consistently approved density bonus projects, yet developers consistently have not followed through on building them. Now our city is adding more incentives to our density bonus law to entice greed-driven developers to build. In the process of exploiting these incentives, they have gotten away with not meeting the essence of our density bonus law. Our municipal code section 19.56.050 item G needs to be amended to reflect the approved May 2020 BMR manual. Our municipal code needs to specify what the BMR chapter 2.3.4 states that requires same number of bedrooms, size of the bedrooms in square feet, dispersal, so that the city does not allow and enable discrimination against families. This is important because families come to Cupertino for the schools. We should not allow developers to discriminate through the use of poorly worded laws. I'm requesting you to, in the process of updating this bonus density law, first fix the municipal code section 19.56.50 item G to match the BMR chapter and have it come back to the Planning Commission with these changes to our municipal code before going forward. Let's be consistent. Thank you.
Hey, you're on mute.
Peggy, thank you for your comments. Our next guest is Jennifer Griffin, followed by Lisa Warren. So, Jennifer Griffin.
Thank you, Chair Wong. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I tell you, no wonder people are out to try to recall our governor. This is the biggest gobbledygook. This AB 2345 barely passed the legislature last July at midnight of 2020. The two authors are Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez from San Diego and our own Assembly person David Chu from San Francisco. I will tell you right now, I am not impressed with San Diego, whatever they want to do, especially with how horrendously written this bill is. I am amazed that David Chu would even want to be part of this. This is reflecting badly on our governor. Also, they have to remember that Mr. Faulkner, a former mayor of San Diego, is one of the Republicans attempting to run in case Gavin is recalled. I got my ballot today. And Faulkner is a moderate Republican. Okay, great. But I am not impressed if this type of garbage, AB 2345, is coming out of San Diego. Do I want my governor to come out of San Diego? Tony Atkins came out of San Diego. It's reflecting poorly. God bless our city and our city staff and our new attorney. We are going to have to muck our way through this. I am not impressed with San Diego, and I am not impressed with San Francisco being involved in this bill. This is messing with cities, and I will say again, it has turned ABAG, RENA, HCD into a dog and pony show, and we are in the middle of the big circus. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Welcome our next guest, Lisa Warren. Anyone with a question, remember, just raise your hand on Zoom. You can find that in the actions button. And of course, you have 3 minutes to speak. Please go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, hi, good evening. So first, as always, I once again feel Peggy is spot on with her comments. So some of mine were the same. I won't repeat them. She had additional ones that were even better. So please take her comments seriously. First, thing I want to not forget to say is please do not adopt the additional incentives portion of this. There's no reason to. It opens up let's see, let's call it a beforehand freebie. It's just not necessary. And I hate allowing what the state or anyone else may do that we don't agree with to just be wrapped up in this. Okay, you can do that too. So please don't do that. I noted a comment that Chris, the new city attorney, and welcome again, phrased the allegations of the lawsuit. Does that mean there is already a lawsuit in play or just the threat of one? I think that's really important to know. And I don't know if you can tell us lowly citizens, but it would be nice. I really question why YIMBY Law and others like them, Spur, this, that, and the other thing, why are they not considering lawsuits against developers who don't build housing projects that have been approved? Why aren't they finding an angle where they can go after the, hey, you've got this to build, you're not doing it, we need the housing, get on it, or we're suing you? Why do they always go after cities who are trying to do the right thing for their residents and their community and future residents? And again, you know, the school district does this, it's over and over again. Oh, we can't do this because we might get sued. Well, you know what? How much do we, the collective we, have to lose if the city lets the fear of a lawsuit drive the decision of what's best for our city and therefore our community every time someone makes a squeak? And when a squeak is coming from a resident or a developer who is already not well suited, why do we have to feel like we have to cave? I really wish we could get over that. And I think that the elementary school districts bond measure would have passed had they not been afraid to be sued to do the right kind of tax. And it's just over and over. The big guys with the big money who do what they want and don't do what they should get what they want because everybody else cowers. I think it's BS. It's time to step up just like the Me Too people. You know, get on it.
Lisa, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Okay, our next speaker is Jean Bedord. And if there's anyone else, once again, please raise your hands and you have 3 minutes to talk. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, Chair Wang and commissioners. My name is Jean Bedord and I am a longtime Cupertino resident. I am here to urge you to approve the recommended action to make Cupertino compliant with AB 2345. This saga has gone on for over 6 months. From the time that the council was warned back in December 2020 that this ordinance would not be compliant. Your previous attorney, Barb, I don't remember her last name, failed to disclose that her client, Encinitas, had repealed a similar ordinance. HCD has stated clearly that Cupertino is not compliant. Please avoid additional litigation. Cupertino is already on their blacklist, and the housing element is coming up. I think you need to improve your relationship. I urge you to unanimously approve this ordinance tonight so the city can move ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Looking to see if there are any more comments from the public. Okay, with that, we will take that back to discussion among the commissioners. Thank you for your comments, public, and we will go on, continue the discussion. So, all right, commissioners. And before we begin, I just want to be clear. I just want to ask a question to the staff. Does HCD have an official blacklist that we know of?
I am not aware of an official blacklist at HCD. I did. So I think the answer to that question is I'm not aware of it. I did. So it's also, just if you don't mind, I just wanted to jump in in response to Ms. Warren's comments, just to clarify. if it was not clear that no, it has been no lawsuit filed, and so that was a hypothetical discussion. Focusing on litigation risk. There is no lawsuit presently filed against the city.
Can we have a public request sent to HCD to verify that there is no blacklist or whitelist as from the planning? Because if they do have one, we want to be sure we are aware of that. So if you could send it, because a long-standing member of the community has raised that point, and it's important for us to check where we stand on that.
Right, so we have 2 PRR requests, one to figure out who the heck officially asked HCD, which we kind of know the answer to, but I think city should still file a public request act, a PRR for that, and one for this blacklist. We'll let that an advisement to the city to think. I'm going to go to Commissioner Manipatla, and then of course Vice Chair Scharf for any kind of comments, and then of course we're going to take a look at the ordinance that's in front of us, see if there's any amendments, any changes that the team would like to make here. So go ahead, Mooney, all yours.
Yeah, so thank you for all the comments, from public as well as fellow commissioners. I get a pretty good view of what's going on. So try to get my head around trying to see the numbers, right? Like what is it today, and what is it we are changing to, and also it's pretty clear to me that we are continuously shortchanging affordable housing for market rate housing. Right, so that's that's not where I want us to be, right? So we have an affordable housing crisis, not a market rate housing crisis. So I don't like us continuing to favor the rich and wealthy market rate housing people and give up on affordable housing, right? And there are projects that are continuing to be built, like Westport is a good example of that, right? So they are moving forward, with the current ordinances. So why can't rest of the developers move forward, right? So and also we potentially run the risk of stalling the projects that have been already approved, because they would anticipate future incentives. It's a slippery slope that we are embarking on by continuously relaxing. So I'm pretty disappointed that we continue to come under pressure to favor market rate housing and and disfavor the affordable housing in our city. So that's just my comments that I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Commissioner Matapala, are there specific things you want to change in the ordinance that's there, or any comments that you have there before someone makes a motion, any kind of changes you want to propose? I think that would be much more effective.
Yeah, so the changes that some of you brought up, I would like to see those changes made. For example, we don't want the affordable housing units to be non-livable, right, compared to the market rate housing. So I think we need to be fair for our constituents, right? And we all know that we have an affordable housing crisis. Let's make it fair and for those residents that these houses are livable, right? Like we all know that Cupertino, people come to Cupertino for schools. If you can't have family and kids in the affordable housing units, then we pretty much discriminate against. So I would like to see some of our ordinances to be amended to reflect that we truly favor affordable housing in Cupertino, right?
You want it to be more family inclusive, less discriminatory against families.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right, Vice Chair Scharf, floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Mooney, but I'm just going to talk about this specific ordinance here that we're looking at tonight. So I think we should strike on page 7, item 4, part D, additional incentives. I think number 1 and number 3 are redundant because we already do that anyway. And number 2 is just, it opens us up to it opens us up to all sorts of legal challenges there. There's no delay in permit processing anyway. Well, the problem we have is we can't get people to apply for permits for the projects that we already approved. Or, you know, they apply for them, but they're not qualified to apply because of, you know, issues, you know, with the site not qualifying for a permit yet. So yeah, I would just get rid of that whole section. Section 4, subsection D, number 1.
Vice Chair Scharf, I would be willing to support
just
you on
strike
that as well.
that. Okay.
Vice Chair, I'd be willing to support you on that.
And I mean, you know, I'm disappointed with what's transpired because, you know, it will likely result in fewer affordable units being built. But, you know, I don't think that, you know, I like what Lisa said. We can't always be afraid, but reading the confidential memo, I think that in this case, it's better just to go along with what our legal team has suggested and not push this. So,
If we had a
I mean,
real
I will
news
vote
source,
in favor of it.
if we had real media in the city, people were like trying to find out what this confidential memo was about. It sounds so,
Yeah,
sounds so mysterious.
And I would ask the city attorney, you know, I'm trying hard not to disclose anything in the confidential memo, but, you know, at some point, are these ever made public so the public, you know, has a better idea of what was going on?
So it's attorney-client privileged. The privilege belongs to the council, actually, and so they can vote to waive the privilege.
I see.
But it actually does take a vote of council to waive the privilege. I can't disclose it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. I think for me, like I agree with Commissioner Scharf here, but let's go quickly to Commissioner Saxena if you've got anything else you want to add here to move.
I actually wanted to get some advice from the city about the process here. Can we recommend adding some provisions as was there, or like what would be the way forward if some of the commissioners feel that we should add something?
So you're able to propose amendments that are germane to the item that's been agendized, but if it's not related to the ordinance the amendments that have been agendized, you know, you would not be able to vote on those tonight because of the Brown Act requirements.
Yeah, we have to do the open discussion here. So
right, and I think as Q mentioned, it's too late to go back and now try to create a program that HCD would be okay with. We missed that deadline.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the intent of the council and the commissions was to improve affordability in Cupertino and improve the number of units that were affordable. So we have missed that. So I'm a little worried about that. My only request is really that we have a comparison table that we were talking about earlier to understand what the other concessions are for other cities. I think it's kind of tough to make this decision without having that comparison table. At least I know it's still got one more level to go to council, but I think that's something useful to have. And if we had that, we can quickly say, okay, we understand what we're giving away, what concessions. I feel like many times in the interest of our public and our residents that we are negotiating with two hands tied behind our back. We have very little leverage. We keep getting less leverage in negotiations to preserve the quality and character of our city and to also meet our needs for affordable housing in the region, as well as, you know, meet the needs for the types of families and people who would like to be in Cupertino. And I feel that, you know, the more we give away our concessions, the less control we have to our destiny as a city. And that local land ordinance, that local control is essential to the heart of planning, to the heart of a planning commission. And that keeps getting stripped away unconstitutionally, I would say, as my perspective might not be legally true, but it seems unconstitutional at the state level. So anything we can do to at least have some leverage to at least get public input, resident input, to me is a priority. So I would like to remove Section 4 as well, but I'd also like to see a table that actually talks about what other cities are doing so that council has that information by the next council meeting so that they can do some comparison and understand, you know, what other concessions are being given away. And we have some comparisons to work with so that they have better decisions, better data so they can make better decisions. So,
yeah.
I mean, and to give you an example, we already have a site with hazmat contamination that got density bonus approval. Like that kind of crap shouldn't ever happen again, ever. I mean, that should never, ever happen again. and I cannot overemphasize that. That's just unacceptable in a city like Cupertino. So I'll leave that there. Any other comments?
Yeah, I wanted to add to what you just said. One big reason we want to have BMR housing is to make sure like the city staff, teachers, first responders, and all the other folks who make a city can live here and prosper and grow with the city. They don't have to commute hours just to get here. And while I'm sure our city pays well above what is mandated by any state law, it still might not be sufficient for them to meet. And we would expect them to be long-term residents who want to settle their roots here, send their children to college or school, and so on. And if all our BMR units are going to be essentially studio or small thing which are unfit for families, we're sort of defeating the whole purpose of having a BMR housing. That we have a sense of community, that people who live, who work with us, who make our life better, are also able to live with us and don't have to go through the stress of a long commute. And not having those guidelines in place and then keep on adding, getting these bonuses to make more market-raised housing, to me, it sort of defeats the whole purpose of having a BMR program. It's almost becoming like a way of bypassing existing zoning or density laws in the name of BMR. So it makes me feel a bit sad that somebody actually went to the extent of filing a lawsuit for like maybe 2 units or 1 unit extra, which we might have required. And it sort of speaks about the priorities which certain people have and the interests they're serving. And I hope they look into the conscience to understand why we have a BMR program, what's the mission, what's the motivation, and think about that rather than just maximizing market rate housing at the expense of any structure or plan which cities have.
Commissioner Saxena, thank you for your comments. We are exposing the hypocrisy of those that are using the excuse of market rate housing, but not solving the affordability or homelessness crisis and the inclusionary family policies by hiding behind fake exclusionary protests. But that's something for another day for a commentary. Okay. All right. So we have a kind of a shell proposal here that talks about getting rid of section D here, section 4 and D. It sounds like for most people on here.
Go ahead. Chair Wong. So can we put up on the screen, like, what are those sections that we are talking about to get it up?
We'll see how good our Zoom skills are.
It's page 7 of 10.
Let me do this for you real quick here. I believe this is it that we're looking at. We would like to remove F density, not F.
No.
4. We'd like to remove 4 right here.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, all
This
of 4. I
section.
don't know why it's 4D because it's what happened to 4A, B, and C, but unless.
Well, I think it's part of the larger
okay,
thing.
okay.
Yeah, it's part of the
Right,
CMC.
okay.
I mean, it'd be a
Right,
subsection
I
D
see.
in 1956-040. So far, it sounds like we can remove this section for our proposed proposal to City Council for the way the ordinance will read. And I think, is there anything else? Let me double check here.
So, Chair Wang, I mean, I would say that, if the City Council sees fit to modify the municipal code for priority processing, I think it's fine as long as they do it for 100% housing projects and projects that comply with our inclusionary requirements prior to taking any concessions and waivers. And I think that would be a good incentive for a developer maybe to do the right thing and not use all those concessions and waivers to get around building housing for families.
I think we can solve that problem actually by asking for another, and I don't know what the proper legal language is, and so Chris will need your help here, but I want to make sure that we state clearly in CMC 19.56.050 that we can't have the same, that a requirement for the same number of bedrooms and size for those affordable units and not allow that to be taken as a concession because that would discriminate against families who may want their children in these schools. So I would like to add, that's the only thing I would like to add in the proposal before we send it for someone makes a motion to approve. Can we make that change?
You could make that change. I think I would want to I would want to look at the legality of that change before you made it.
Okay.
So I think the key thing is not doing that here, but in our inclusionary housing requirements is to have a sufficient number of requirements that require concessions, that this kind of thing not happen again, like what we've seen with all the studios. And I don't know, we have to look what other cities did. Did they have enough requirements that require concessions that it would be that these would not be concessions that were chosen as the ones they're entitled to?
Okay.
And
Well, it sounds
I'm
like, I
very
mean, we're
sad that we have to
close.
do all this.
It sounds like we're very close, though. So I guess for the sake of making sure we do this legally and with the right proper procedure, I would recommend that for now, let's make sure we can include that provision, keeping the affordable units in terms of the same size and shape, and not use that as a concession. Let's get rid of Section 4, and then let's have a table of comparisons on the BMR, and then we can get this passed through. So have that information and get this to the next meeting, and then have that sent to City Council from there. So I think I'm asking for a postpone till we have that data. Do I have any, is there a second for that motion?
Well, before we do that, can we ask the city attorney, is it okay to do a postponement while we get that information?
Oh, great point. Yes, let's do that. Yes.
Or is there like a timetable here that we need to avoid this, to avoid a lawsuit?
So I know actually before I joined the city, a timetable was discussed with the potential plaintiffs that are suing us, and there was a discussion of bringing this to City Council in December. I would defer to Pew, whether did I say December? I meant September.
We got lots of time. It's December.
I'm September, just to be clear. I would defer to Pew if a postponement would cause an issue with that.
Right. So in order to get this to council in September, I think it has to go, the second reading also has to occur in September. And in order to get it to the first meeting in September to council, this needs to be recommended. Some decision needs to be made by the Planning Commission at tonight's meeting.
We can't do it on August 24th?
No, because we will not be able to meet the noticing deadlines and other deadlines that we need to meet in order to get this to the September meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I would just favor approving it tonight, and then, the council can make the modifications that we discussed if they wish to, regarding the table and the comparison.
I'm trying to figure out why a second reading wouldn't be able to get the council, because if we make a proposal on the 24th, right, it approves, it goes over, council takes that for the first reading, right, and then by the time they'll be completed by September for the second reading.
There are noticing deadlines that we have to meet, and we need to have the Planning Commission's recommendations in the notice.
What are the noticing deadlines that we need, just so we have the specifics?
Right. So we do need a 21-day lead time from from a meeting in order to get that. So if we work our way backwards from the 7th of September, we will be unable to meet that with if Planning Commission met on the 24th. So that there are just some operational things that we would be unable to meet to get this to the council on.
So what if we had a special meeting on the 17th? I mean, can we do that?
No, I think Ms. Ghosh mentioned a 21-day period, right?
Correct. There's the way that the noticing and all the other deadlines work, and we need to have the Planning Commission's recommendation in the City Council noticing. So in making all of those things work, we would be unable to meet those deadlines in order to get.
What happens if we don't meet the deadlines? I mean,
then we do not meet our timetable. We would then have to go to City Council in the second meeting in September and be unable to have the second reading in September.
Okay, so the concern is that even though we have the first reading, but the City Council can't pass it, and that could potentially upset the people who are
Potentially suing us.
threatening
Right.
of suing us. That's why we want to rush this. Is that a good
Correct.
So
Yes.
there,
So we have-
So with regard to the changes that the commission is looking to make, we can always bring those changes back following this particular, compliance with AB 2345. That is something the commission could recommend that piece be brought back for consideration. But in terms of the compliance with AB 2345, staff would continue to recommend that those changes be moved forward at this time. And Chris, you were saying something.
Oh, real quick. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
no, that's okay. So I think I was going to say something similar to what you said. Is that I mean, we are under threat of litigation. There was a threat to file a lawsuit against the city on July 26th. We did manage to avert that threat, and so I mean that is what is driving the deadline. That does not prevent me from going back and asking the group that's threatening to sue us to exercise patience, but I would say that increases the litigation risk somewhat.
Okay, and the question I have, suppose they file a lawsuit saying that we are not doing it, and we do it after the review, the city council passes it sometime in October, and then I presume that lawsuit will get dismissed because we already done what they've asked us to do, they're wanting us to do.
Sounds like a ransomware attack.
No, it's something like that. If, suppose we have the first reading in the second meeting of September, and because of that, we can't have the second reading till it is done. And then the lawsuit gets filed at the end of September. But by the time it gets to a hearing, the second reading happens and we become in compliance with whatever interpretation of the law we feel is compliant. What will happen to that lawsuit?
Yeah, so I would seek to have the lawsuit dismissed as moot at that point.
And that shouldn't cost us a lot of money, right?
It's not free, but I wouldn't say a lot of money.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just uncomfortable making decisions without having that data. So I feel like we're a little rushed into this process. That's really why I want to have some of that data available. But I also want to know what's within our limits, and I also want to make sure we're respectful of any kind of agreements that were made that we're not aware of. So,
yeah, I think in general I feel very uncomfortable about sort of an agreement made that to not sue the city should undermine the process. Is this do you know if there's anything under consideration with the city right now which will be impacted by this 2-unit adjustment, like anything planned? So like something which could utilize the new guidelines which is not there, which could be affected?
No, but that doesn't prevent anybody from still suing the city.
Yeah, but the suit is based
No, I'm not aware of any projects at this particular time.
Okay, cool, thank you. So yeah, I think I've stated what I've stated, and I'll defer to the chair and the vice chair to think about what should be the best plan of action here. But I generally am very uncomfortable with public process being done under the purview of a lawsuit, especially something where we're being asked to change the amount of BMR housing and reduce it. But that's okay.
okay. I don't know. Vice Chair Scharf, what do you think? Get delayed for a little bit of data, maybe a week at most, get that information together?
Yeah, I mean, I could go either way here. I understand what Pew and our city attorney stated, that, we can make a recommendation. The city council can change it. We could always come back later and modify the ordinance. We're not, I mean, what we're approving is going to be approved whether, with or without this table and this data. I think that those are almost a separate issue that we need to consider separately in terms of how do we modify our inclusionary housing requirements to prevent a repeat of what's been happening in terms of the waivers and concessions and the tiny units. I don't think that this ordinance tonight is necessarily the proper place to do that. So, I mean, I would vote to approve it tonight, but if you want to delay it, it sounds from the city attorney, there's no real risk if the council gets it the first meeting in October. You know, if that organization decided to sue on September 30th and the council approves it on the first meeting in October, well, you know, hopefully they wouldn't do that. But if they did, it doesn't sound like a huge deal. I mean, unless there's
Well,
some...
actually, I hope those folks don't do that. I mean, we are here for the interest of affordable housing and affordability.
But they are not.
I hope they are too. I can't say that they're not. And I would say that, you know, I mean, we are a data-driven planning commission, and missing that data is important. I think that's, you know, something we can do. I would like to put forth a proposal with the ordinance with section 4 stricken, and then, you know, having a table that's being provided, you know, as part of that.
What is the table showing again?
Just what other cities are doing on BMR concessions.
I mean, I don't think putting a table of what other cities are doing into our own ordinance.
Not into the ordinance. Not into the ordinance. I would
you're just
say
talking about, okay, for discussion.
For discussion
right.
purposes. Yeah. I mean, I think they need that for the city council to have that information. So I think that's important.
Well,
and also
I mean,
to look into the legality of requiring the affordable units to be not to have that affordability, you know, taken off as a concession, like having the same size, you know, same number of units.
I mean, I don't like that either. I don't think any of the residents or most of them don't, but I don't know if that is a reason to delay taking action tonight. But I will go along with what the chair, what the majority says. If we postpone it, that's fine too.
Let me get some opinions. Oh, go ahead, Pew.
I did want to, if we do have to come back to the Planning Commission on the 24th, we only have 1 week. And I don't think that in 1 week we will be able to gather data in terms of what incentives and concessions in different projects in various cities people are looking for. I don't know that we will be able to get that data in such a short period of time. And I'm not trying to say that, this is not data that we cannot bring back. I'm just saying it's not possible to be done in 1 week. It's not data that's available very easily in various cities. So
yeah, but we could probably ask. I mean, we can. I mean,
yes, we can. But I don't know that we'll get responses in just 1 week. We can certainly.
It's more
try.
than 1 week, right? It's 2 weeks, right? You've got 2 weeks.
No, we have to post the packet next week. Sure.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
So we can bring it to council in a month, though. So we could still bring it to council in a month. But I do want to check into the legality, at least, of making a requirement to have the same number of bedrooms and size, and add that to CMC 19.56.050.
That is still on our, that was still on the council's agenda. Again, I will remind the Planning Commission that this item has not been continued into the fiscal 21-22 work program. However, that is something that is still on an item that the council wishes to consider. And we can bring some data back to the council, but at this time, the purpose of this item is to make sure that our local ordinance is in compliance with AB 2345, not with regard to additional incentives. This was just an option, because we had committed to HCD in terms of here are the different things that the city does do already in order to incentivize affordable housing. If you look at attachment C, of the packet, those are things that we had conveyed to HCD, so we thought those might be things that we could incorporate. But if the Planning Commission is looking for other things, such as incentivizing family-sized units, that is something outside the scope of what we have been discussing for this particular item. But it's not that we cannot bring it back. Again, I reiterate that.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree here with Pew that, I think we should bring it back and find ways that we can modify our inclusionary requirements to prevent what's transpired at several other developments in the city. It's not just the tiny units either. It's, you know, we would like some for sale BMR housing. I mean, that would have been great at the Oaks instead of having everything be the rentals. But I think that's for another time. And I think
That's definitely for another time.
I think we
Yeah,
should
that's
just
definitely
get
for
this
another.
ordinance passed and get it onto city council. I don't see any reason to postpone it personally. But that's my opinion.
No, definitely noted. Yeah, I'm just afraid that we're rushing into it without the data. But I mean, I'm okay with getting the proposed ordinance in play with section 4 stricken, but with a very strong language to council that data is needed. If that's where you want to proceed with it, I think
Yeah,
it's
I'll
very
make that
important.
motion to
Yeah, I
adopt
think I'll agree with that.
adopt this with 4D removed.
Yeah, it's section 4. The D is just the section which refers to the code.
Yeah. And that, right. So I don't see the number here, but yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve this resolution. I don't see the number in the resolution there. Is that in the agenda?
I think it's
Or what?
4 is in the. Let's
That
see.
is the draft resolution, so it
Right.
did not have a number.
Oh,
And-
okay. So, all right, I'll make a motion to approve the draft resolution with section 4 of the draft. I'm sorry, approve the ordinance with section 4 of the draft ordinance removed.
I'll second it.
Hey, roll call.
Okay, discussion.
Oh,
Do we have a
yeah.
second?
I
We
don't
have a
know.
second.
Yeah, I don't have any more discussion.
Okay.
I'm sad that we have to do this, but you know, let's do it.
Commissioner Montipala, any comments from you? And I'll go to Commissioner Saxena, and then I'll close out.
Yeah, I'm really sad to see these kind of changes, right? That disfavors affordable housing in the city. So I understand, the lawsuit by some vested interests and whatnot, threatening and dictating the timeline. I'm also not comfortable making decisions without the data that you have been asking for. So that's kind of where I am. So.
Okay, Commissioner Saxena.
Yeah, I think we've spoken enough. I feel really uncomfortable doing something under threat of a lawsuit, especially if it's not going to affect anything. But I'll defer to the judgment of the city staff, and as Vice Chair recommends, and essentially go ahead with this for the time being. But we do want to get the data and be better informed overall.
Commissioner Montipala, you've got something else to add? Sorry.
Yeah, so I have one ask, right? So in future, can we ask the city staff to get in front of these kind of laws, not on the back end? Because I heard Vice Chair Sharp say that, we passed the deadline, to make changes and blah, blah, blah. And I heard something similar, on the cell phone 5G cell phone ordinance where we missed the deadline. So I would like us to get in front of these, not on the back end. That's just my ask to the staff.
Okay.
If I may
Thanks,
respond
Commissioner.
to that. On this issue, I did want to say we did get ahead of the law. I think it's the threat of litigation that is bringing us back to this issue. So I just wanted to state that.
I just want to be clear. The ranking on the threat of litigation on a scale of 1 to 5 was sitting at a 2 in terms of the cost and in terms of in terms of what we have to do. So it's not like I'm respectful to the folks that plan to litigate or thinking about litigating, and I'm respectful to any kind of agreements that have been made. But I just want to be clear that making decisions without data, making decisions with long-term implications, making decisions that may have severe impact in future contract negotiations with other developers is not a matter we should take lightly. So I just want to be clear about that. So even if there is a slight threat of a lawsuit, and a lawsuit could happen from any point and from anybody at that point in time, the assessment and the proportional response to that is what's important here. So I just want to be clear on that. Commissioner Saxena went. Vice Chair Scharf, I think you have nothing else to add to this. You already made your comment.
No,
Comment.
no, we have a motion in a second. Oh, go ahead.
Have we have a motion in a second? My comment on this motion is I'm probably going to vote no, mostly because we don't have the data. We are being rushed. This is a very, very important issue. I do want to make sure we are in conformance. I want to make sure council has the right information they need to proceed. And so that's where I stand. So I'm probably going to vote no, but let's call for a vote since there's no other comment and I don't want to delay anyone else. So Abby, yeah, let's do a roll call.
Chair Maripatla?
So I'm voting no on this because I'm happy with what we have, and I don't like being forced into doing something under threat of lawsuit or ransomware kind of an attacks. That's just not how we should be doing business. So I'm voting no on this.
Commissioner Saxena?
I just want to support the city staff, so I'm going to vote yes. But I share the same feelings as Commissioner Maripatla.
Vice Chair Scharf?
Aye.
Chair Wong?
Yeah, before we do that, and I'll give you my vote, but I realized that I screwed this up. We want to amend section 3, number 4, and remove that, just for procedural clarity. So it's section 3, number 4. That's the part that we're trying to strike in this, so that we have the right one. And then I'm voting no. So, but I just want to make sure we have the right procedure in place.
Do you need to take another vote?
No need to take a vote. I just want to make sure that's it's section 3, number 4. There we go. Hey, whoever put that up, congratulations. Thank you. So. Okay, so we have the motion reads 1-3-0, and motion fails.
No. Two.
Oh, you voted yes, Vikram?
Yeah, I second.
Oh, okay, so 2-2. Okay, so we have a tie. So. You second the motion, but did you vote yes? Sorry.
Yeah, I did.
That was true. Okay, all right, good.
Vote yes.
I did
That's
again.
2-2.
I did primarily because of the city staff saying that it's going to be hard. I personally just don't like this style of functioning.
Okay, so 2-2. So what do we have at the moment?
Well, it fails then.
It fails as a tie. Okay.
Well.
Okay.
So, Mr. City Attorney, what do we do now?
So
it goes to council and council decides, right?
I believe that's correct.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we weighed in and they can choose to agree or ignore us, but that's it, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, okay. Well, with that, we can go to our next agenda item, if they can close out, if there's anything else from anyone else. Old business. Any old business from the staff?
No, Chair Wong, no old business at this time.
Okay. Any new business?
Not at this time.
Okay. Staff and commission reports. Commissioner Matapatla. Sorry, staff, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to introduce our city attorney, Chris Jensen. This is is this your first meeting, Chris, with the Plan Commission?
Oh my God, how do we not introduce you? I'm so sorry.
So I just wanted to take the time. I know we kind of jumped right into business, but I did want to take the time to introduce Chris to the Planning Commission. So Chris, if you wanted to take a few minutes to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I won't take too much of people's time, but I do appreciate the introduction. So just, so I was happy to have the chance to participate in this meeting. I am coming from the city of Berkeley. I've been the assistant city attorney there for the past 2 years. I did a lot of work with our planning department and our zoning board in Berkeley, and so I think I'm familiar with a lot of the issues that all of you deliberate on, and hope that I can continue to support you, and hope that our office can continue to support you. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this debate tonight, and I look forward to continue to work with you.
And you are here on a full-time permanent basis, right?
I am, yes.
Oh, awesome. Because we need to get the parcel, Berkeley model of the school parcel tax pass, so we're going to rely on.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, so when it comes to threat of lawsuits, I think now we have somebody who can tell us what's going to happen now. So the context here is RCUST has one of the lowest per pupil funding in the whole country, especially if you normalize a cost of living. And we had a parcel tax fail because a lot of people wanted to have a per square foot tax rather than per parcel tax. But like many things, it's a process, and I'm glad you are here because you probably have some idea about how that thing worked, even though you were in the city of Berkeley and that was the school district. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, I should properly introduce, Chris is a graduate of Stanford Law School. He serves as the assistant city attorney for City of Berkeley. He also worked for, before he did that, he was a partner at Hanson Bridget, which many people know. And of course, he has an undergraduate environmental chemistry degree from UCSD and a master's degree in atmospheric chemistry at MIT. Probably took class 12.335, which you can confirm, which you'll laugh about. But thank you so much for being here. We're happy to have you here, and sorry for not introducing you earlier. So,
of course, thank you all.
Yeah, so Chris, I'd like to welcome you to our city. So thank you, thanks, and good to have you here. With the kind of an experience, and also with all the academic credentials that Ray was talking about, right? So,
yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
So, well, hey, thank you for being here. So, okay, all right. Other staff reports? Anything else? Thank you, Pugh.
No, none at this time. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, commission reports.
I have nothing.
Okay.
Nothing from my end.
Okay, Commissioner Saxena.
Nothing.
Okay. I've been attending the Cali events as well, looking at the impact on legislation for SB 9 and SB 10, and spending some time understanding that on the ground. So just letting folks know there's some of the meetings I've been attending. Okay. With that, let's go to any future business items, any agenda items folks would like to place. I think there's a comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, the DRC meeting is canceled, right? On 19th. We were supposed to have it.
I believe so.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, good question. And I'll be attending the mayor's meeting tomorrow. So just letting you know that's what's going on. Future agenda settings. Anybody have anything, agenda items that they want to put on table?
We talked about the school funding, the formula. We wanted to understand how planning decisions impact school funding, and we wanted to study the history of Cupertino, maybe going back a quarter century in terms of how single family versus multifamily versus for rent multifamily versus owner occupied multifamily contributes to school density. I know we talked about that, but I don't think we followed up. So, Chair Wong, do you want to probably put something where we discuss what we would like the city to request, the kind of information from the district?
Yeah, I think that's something we can put on the agenda. I think you and I can kind of connect and figure out what you're specifically looking for, and to get the right players into that conversation point. So I think that would be useful. So thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, I think a study session on that, and I've got volumes of data on that compares the student impact long-term of rental versus for sale housing, as well as also including the impact of when you go to the small units, because then you actually get fewer students. And yeah, it's very, very complicated, all that data, and often
funding is per pupil basis, just so people
right.
remember.
So and often the school demographers do not consider all the data that they should be considering, and that's why we end up. I know with my own kids, all of a sudden, 6 more portables appeared, and we had no idea that people moving into those condos would have any children, and it's like, well, we could have told you that, but you didn't want to listen. So I think a study session, would be a great idea on that. And then the other agenda item is to look at modifying our inclusionary housing program to ensure that there are enough requirements to offset the number of concessions that could be taken. It's kind of an odd, way to have to do things, but we need to do things to comply with state law, and while at the same time try to encourage the kind of affordable housing that we would all like to see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I have.
I'd also like to propose a series of study sessions on some interesting concepts as well, get ahead of the planning issue. One of the interesting things I've been hearing a lot about are health villages, right? So, and this is the concept of creating healthy villages, healthy living areas. And so I think there's concepts like that in other new planning areas that we can bring in to share new ideas and maybe get some series in maybe every other month of different type of speakers in to kind of share ideas. So for example, new types of concepts that are in there to get ahead of the planning curve, as well as getting folks, getting outside views and outside inputs as well from folks that are not vested developer interest, but people who really care about urban development, urban planning, to make sure that that's in play. So. And then, of course, the 5G issue looms, and I'll be working with some folks to figure out how to get that rapidly on the agenda on the 5G ordinance for aesthetics. I think that's something important, and that's something for future agenda setting. We need to get that up there. I think there's a strong resident demand for that as well. Okay. I guess that's it for us here. No other comments for folks? All right, with that, thank you for attending the August 10th meeting of the City of Cupertino's Planning Commission, and hope you tune in 2 weeks. Join us August 24th, same time, same place, at 6:45 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.